Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest today for our interview. It's Justin Barlow, venture investor from Solana Ventures. So, hello, Justin. How are you feeling today?
Hey man, I'm doing well.
So let's
Happy to
cut
be
to the
here.
chase and start with our first question. So tell us about your crypto journey and what sparked your interest in investing in crypto.
Yeah, so I have a bit of an interesting background for this. My dad is a software developer and was an entrepreneur. I grew up in New York in a place where a lot of people were super interested or worked in the finance industry. And so I always grew up with an interest in the finance industry and an interest in, the tech side and entrepreneurial side. And so naturally, when I first started hearing about crypto in 2016, it began to sort of pique my interest. And then I had a professor actually in university who had overheard me talking about some of the stuff I was doing as far as trading in public markets for, like equities, right? And he said, hey, if you like the volatility of trading tech stocks, you should take another look at crypto because there's definitely something there. And so from there on, it was a pretty quick journey, down the rabbit hole. And here I am today.
Okay, so how did you choose Solana exactly? Why Solana?
Yeah, so I had been in the space, like I was saying, for in the last 6 or 7 years. Had really thought that there was a ton of opportunity for blockchain, but I always felt that blockchain in general was inhibited by some of the, struggles that Ethereum had, right? Whether it be, gas fees, whether it be throughput, whether it be transaction speed, etc. And so when I first stumbled upon Solana, probably about 2.5 years ago, I was really impressed by the approach that was being taken with the focus on UX and obviously with the underlying tech.
How do you approach researching and analyzing crypto before making investment decisions? And what factors basically you consider before doing that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of factors, but ultimately, because most of our investments are at the pre-seed and seed stage, so the very early stages, obviously there is a focus on the project itself and the vision and the direction, etc. But a big part of the focus as well is on the the founding team and what their skill set looks like and what their experience is in whatever particular vertical that they're trying to tackle. Ultimately, while you have some ideas up front about where you want to take a project, many of these teams at the early stages will end up pivoting multiple times. And so being able to have that skill set to fall back on and knowing that they are, experienced entrepreneurs or have, just like a ton of grit in them and are able to, to pivot effectively, certainly makes a difference in the investment process.
Okay, so team basically comes first with their ideas, and then you can research other factors that comes next. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the project, certainly, right? If you're meeting with a team that is building something incredibly innovative that no one has seen before and has only been suggested by this one team, then perhaps in that situation the idea may matter a bit more, right? If you're taking a team and they're saying, hey, we want to rebuild X, right, or we want to build the next generation of Y, that's where I think that the team will have a massive impact because you're leaning on them to have, let's say a 10 or at least 20% better, experience than what currently exists in the market.
So basically, that's the private information we're talking about, private meetings, and then you decide to go invest something or not.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so our next question is, how do you handle this emotional part of investment? Because there's a lot of psychological factors around in investing in crypto. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing really, and it is something that just takes time to get there, is to think about it like you are a poker player, right? You never want to show your hand. You don't want to get emotional. And yes, of course, you have to understand that this is a long game. I think for me, what really helps me is that, there's obviously a ton of intraday volatility within crypto. I spend time on the trading side, like I said, as well, right? But ultimately, if you're looking at this from a long-term perspective, generally speaking, things go in one direction, right? And assuming that you're investing in quality teams and quality projects that have a real TAM and have product market fit, generally speaking, you can ignore sort of the intraday, fluctuations and look more towards the longer term trend.
Okay, so you mentioned like volatility in crypto, and because it is pretty like relevant thing for crypto to have, what measures do you take to ensure that your crypto investments are secure in terms of in times of volatility?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone has a different strategy. I won't talk too much about the strategy at Solana Ventures specifically, but generally speaking, the venture funds will take a little bit of a more hands-off approach to volatility in the sense that they aren't actively trading, let's say, putting hedges in place, et cetera, right? Whereas the more like crypto hedge funds, which is what I had done in the past, generally try to put, hedges in place or try to dampen volatility. So really it's just a matter of what your strategy is and, I guess how much, risk you're willing to take with your portfolio. I see folks who, have very little care for volatility in their portfolio and are happy to just, ride high conviction bets. I see folks who, are willing to either hedge their position or sell off parts of their positions at certain times. It's all relevant to, your strategy specifically.
Okay, but I want to ask you, how do you address concerns about the potential market manipulation in crypto and like insider trading? What do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think, you see bad actors in all markets, right? Whether it's crypto, whether it's traditional finance markets, et cetera. I think the unique quality that we have in crypto that we don't have elsewhere is, at least for on-chain transactions, you have this transparency, right? And so people do and have been called out many times in the past for this type of thing. And I think that that's one positive benefit that we have from crypto that we honestly don't have elsewhere, right? In other like opaque markets, you wouldn't even know that it's happening. At least in the crypto market, assuming you're making on-chain transactions, there is a paper trail. And so I think that, crypto markets over time will ultimately become, much more transparent and less manipulated than, even the traditional financial markets, just simply because of that feature set.
Interesting. So how long before that is going to happen?
That's anyone's guess. I think it'll likely be driven or catalyzed by, on-chain trading being the dominant form of trading. Today, most trading that's happening is happening on centralized exchanges, which means you still have that sort of opaque nature that you have in traditional finance markets. Once you have fully on-chain trading being sort of the norm or the standard in the industry, I think that this will be, effectively, I don't want to say, solved, but it will certainly be, far more transparent in a way where, bad actors will be called out by, people in the community, by other institutions, et cetera.
So you said that the majority of transactions are happening in CEXs, like centralized exchanges. What about decentralized? So will DEX prevail?
Yeah, so I personally think it really depends on a few factors. I mean, one of them is that the UX for a DEX has to be better or at least equal to what we see in the centralized exchanges. And I think that we're still getting there. You have a number of really high quality DEXs that have been making great strides towards, building a UX that feels familiar for the average user. But ultimately, yeah, I think that, they still have, a bit to go. And I think one other thing that people often forget about is that there also is this question of sort of regulatory clarity. And so ultimately, I think we do need, more regulatory clarity on the decentralized trading side, because right now, I think it's very tough for projects that are building in that vertical to be able to know, what's okay and what's not, because there's been a lack of clarity from regulators.
So, well, maybe you can address some advice for newcomers who are new to trading, and can you share some, can you give them an advice on how to make a successful trade?
That's a tough one. I would say, just make sure that you're well researched, make sure you have goals in place, et cetera. Generally, like I said, on the venture side, you're not heavily focused exactly on, specific entry and exit points. You're not an active sort of liquid trader. So it's a bit different than being on sort of the hedge fund side. But generally speaking, from my experience, have set up goals ahead of time where you want to sort of get in and get out of positions. Make sure you have a strong thesis before you get into anything, because ultimately what you don't want to be is in the position where you are upset with yourself for making an investment because you don't believe in the underlying thesis, rather than just seeing volatility in the market. And yeah, I would say in general, just to make sure that you're trading somewhere that you feel is secure and have sort of proper key management.
Thanks, Justin, for joining in, for spending out some time. It was Justin Barlow, venture investor from Solana Ventures. Thank you all for joining, and see you soon.